Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRI. AFRI is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. Today we have a new episode and we have a new storytellers. I have the pleasure to welcome you, Fatima and Mayra, to Urbanistica podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm very happy to have you here. So you live in Stockholm, Mayra, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I live in Stockholm since 2018.
Nice. But you are in Malmö.
I'm in Malmö since 2019. Yes.
Thanks for coming to Stockholm. It's I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I love Stockholm. So anytime you can call me, I will be.
I'm happy to have you. So we start with you. You are our storytellers. We start with you, Fatima. How would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Fatima Grand. I'm an architect from London. I'm British Persian, so I have a Middle Eastern origin, and I studied and I worked in London as an architect for over 10 years. I lived in London for almost 17 years before moving to Sweden in 2019, and so I consider myself a Londoner, but I also feel very international, as you can imagine. So yeah, it's been fantastic. And during my experience in London, I basically met many people and worked on different kind of projects, different sectors. And I'm a member of the Royal Institute of British Architects and the Architects Registration Board, and here Sveriges Architects.
Wow, this is so fancy, no?
Is it?
What do you think, Mayra?
Many credentials there. That's because I'm old.
Now, good to have you here in Sweden then.
Thank you.
And welcome to Urbanistica. How about you, Mayra? How would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm originally from Brazil, and I'm educated as an industrial designer, architect, and urban planner in Brazil, Sweden, and the US. So I consider myself quite international as well,
Nice.
as one can say. And I did a few internships overseas as well when I was studying. I did a training in Japan and in the US when I was studying there. And then I moved to Sweden in 2018 to study a master's at KTH in urban design. And I've been here since then. Worked in Brazil as an architect, but also worked as a landscape architect and urban designer in the US and Japan.
Wow. It's
Speaking of
Not many credentials there.
so you literally walk the talk about international architects.
Yeah, I guess so.
Happy to have you. So I also love to know, what are you passionate about? What is your passion?
That's hard.
Because there is a passion or there.
Yeah, I think I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I think I'm driven by something that I've learned when I was a teenager and got introduced to the punk and hardcore scene, like the underground world is where I find myself very comfortable. So I'm very passionate for the underground culture, the urban relationships. And another thing about myself is that I've been vegan for like 18 years. So I think that is a big part of me. I think everyone who is close to me see myself as this person, as like someone, oh yeah, she's been vegan for as long as we remember. And so I think, my passion is very much around animal rights, urban rights, and human rights in general.
Yeah. How about you, Fatima?
Well, same as Mayra, I've always been passionate and interested about many things. And so it's really hard to point, to kind of try and contain it into one subject. But I think because of my background, I traveled a lot when I was a child. So for me, I've always been passionate about meeting new people, new cultures. So that's where I get really excited and I want to hear more and I want to talk more. I really want to have a good conversation, and that drives me really, whether it's at work with architecture or it's personal life.
Yeah.
So I would say that's what I'm passionate about.
Amazing. So how did you both met?
Well, the first time we actually physically met was here. In this occasion, we are recording the podcast.
Wait. So this is your first time meeting?
Yesterday, actually. Just before coming here today.
It's a quite an interesting story, this.
Yeah. We're going to be telling that more in depth. But,
yes. We have met online since long ago.
Yeah.
Almost a year.
Like what was this? Why? Oh, how? Oh, online. You told me online digitally, but like why? What was the reason?
Through the International Architects Sweden.
Okay.
So when we started to grow the platform and connecting with other people and volunteers.
Yeah.
And that's when we had a few meetups online.
Yeah.
And then Mayra came.
Yeah.
And we sort of connected immediately. And so that's through IAS really.
Yeah, So how does it feel now? Now you met each other, like real life.
It's so different. You see someone on a screen.
You prefer the digital one?
You can tell me the truth.
Definitely. No. I think it's nice to see someone on their bodies.
Yeah.
And the body language is something very good and important about someone's personality. I don't think I'm as interesting online as maybe I hope I am.
Not,
you are.
I think not so many people are interesting online nowadays. Everyone is tired. In the beginning was fine.
Yeah.
Everyone was happy. This is something new. But later, okay, we really missed the...
I think also that when you're online, you don't have, you have to disconnect at some point. And when you meet in person, I feel we have so much to say, and we still haven't had enough time to sit down.
Yeah,
it was short,
and short.
So it's actually you realize you say more when you're in person.
Yeah, of course.
When you're present.
Yeah. So today we're gonna talk about the International Architects Sweden. You call it? You mentioned like AAS, or what did you say now?
IAS.
IAS, yeah, IAS. So I'm gonna refer to this as IAS during the episode for the listeners. So tell me about, Fatima, the background. How did everything start?
So I moved here in 2019, as I said before, and with all the experience I had in London from the UK over 10 years. So as a qualified architect, I knew what I needed to start my work here in the profession. But I struggled to find information. I struggled to connect with people. So I decided to kind of look for that for myself and figure out what's going on and why is it so hard and are there any courses and so on. So I realized there were a lot of little organizations or platforms, initiatives that were helping people, the newly arrived like myself, but they were either fragmented or short-lived, or they were only offered in Stockholm. So I started to kind of think about, okay, who are these other international architects? Why can't I connect with them? I want to know more what's happening here. I became a member of Sveriges Architecter, and I was just trying to connect with others.
Can you explain to the listeners who like Sveriges Architecter, because we have also international listeners?
Yes, Sveriges Architecter is basically representative of the architects in Sweden, as well as I believe the role of a union. So when you come here as a foreign architect, or if you've studied here, you can become a member. You pay a membership fee, and you get a certain level of services from them, and also the news of the industry and so on. Yeah. So it's a really good organizations to start with when you arrive. So that was basically like trying to think about international architects. Who are they? How can I connect with them? So the result of that was that I tried to put a list of things that could have been helpful for someone like me, and go forward to Sveriges Architecter and put a motion in front of them to see if they can integrate some of those helps that those elements of courses and so on that I needed. And they informed me that they have acknowledged the issue and they are working on it.
But this was personally for you.
It was me, yes.
Like you were not presenting a group. It was just for you.
Not at that time. I was speaking on behalf of the people I thought would be like me, because I kind of could tell this about the situation. So then that's where it started with, and then I started calling it International Architects Sweden. Then we had a first meetup online during COVID, and that's when we became officially a platform.
I remember the first contact you made with, and I saw it was in a Facebook group that has been quite inactive for a really long time, but called Newly Arrived Architects Sweden. And I think there was something that used to be super active back in the days, and then you posted something like, hello, more people in this situation here. So then that's how you started to gather.
I think I posted like I'm trying to experiment with starting a platform.
Okay.
I need people to join.
So there was already a Facebook group.
It was a Facebook
but it was not super active when you like.
Not really. No.
And then you wrote there and you saw there's an engagement.
Yes. There was an engagement and people started commenting as well on that post, starting to express their opinion.
What did you write?
I just said I'm looking for data. I'm looking for architects, and I want to put a database together for international architects here, something of that sort. I can't exactly remember.
Yeah.
And then people started saying, "Yeah, I'm really interested. It's hard to
so you kind of initiate the kind of let's do something together.
Yes, let's do something together. And then there was a lot of interest. I think I had about 100 emails from that post. Of course, not everybody got involved, but the interest was instant. And I found that then I was even more intrigued. Okay, what's happening here?
You'll be like, oh shit.
Right, what's happening here? Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I came 1 year before, and I actually have been coming back and forth between Sweden and Brazil since 2017. And there was a meetup group, an active meetup group in Stockholm, where I've met a lot of my friends. They like all international architects working in Sweden. But this group also started through this Facebook group because we have no idea who is the admin of this newly arrived Facebook group person. And it's not something that we have access to. We cannot create events. We cannot do anything. True. So there was already this meetup happening, which was organized by one person, and it became inactive at some point as well. I think during the pandemic, it kind of died out. But it was only in Stockholm. So it was interesting to see, for me to follow as well, how many like other people in different cities like that. So I was very motivated to engage in this because I was lucky to be in Stockholm and have this network. And I know how this network was so important for me in the beginning. But I thought that this is something that has to happen in every single city. So it was nice to see this happening, this initiative happen back in the days.
Tell me, like, what are the challenges? Because you have been in contact with many architects, you did the meetups and so on. So what about the challenges that they are facing when they arrive?
I think the challenges we face when we arrive is mostly to understand where to go for information. Because as Fatima said, this various architect is a pretty good union. There's a lot of information, but you have to become a member. The majority of the information is in Swedish. The resources that they put available in English is very limited. And when you coming from a different country, it's very overwhelming, everything.
Of course.
Especially being in a language that you're not fully familiar with. So I think like the challenge is to know where to start from or what you should do first. And then understanding what happens after, like what kind of material can you have access to? Are there, for me, for example, was quite surprising to understand that it's not a protected title in Sweden, like architects and landscape architects. There's no protection. I mean,
what do you mean by protection?
It's not a title that formally you actually need an education to have. It seems like someone can claim being an architect just by experience without having necessarily an education for it. Whereas where I come from, I have to go through tests to actually get my certificate. The same for British education. The US as well, you have to undergo like a series of tests after you finish your university.
After finishing the degree.
Yeah.
So once you've got done your bachelor's and then master's, then you have to do a set of professional tests she's mentioning, which is about contract law, all sorts of law related to practicing architecture, code of conduct, how to...
Like boring stuff. No?
Really boring stuff. But once you finish that, then you're allowed to legally call yourself an architect if you do that,
Really?
so if you call yourself an architect beforehand,
Yeah.
you could be fine. You could go to prison. Whatever.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, you already spent so many years studying architecture,
really
and then
trying to put you off.
and then you need to study more. Like,
There is a legal weight of for like being an architect in Brazil. You actually are legally responsible for what you're doing. Yeah. So it's a very different relationship.
Yeah. So how is it here? Like you say, this is a challenge. What is the challenge related to the title?
Well, I think it's quite open, but the openness of it for someone coming from overseas is hard to grasp, I think. And but at the same time, it's not as open as you imagine, because it's kind of a niched sector. So someone is an architect, someone's a landscape architect, someone is a planning architect, and those things are quite different. Whereas in many other places, those are the same professions. You just decide which kind of assignment you want to do. So I guess like trying to understand the nuances of the profession without having resources, explaining it clearly, and also understanding how to start looking for a job, what kind of CV you should tame, or what kind of portfolio, because each country also has these specifics regarding what you should write in your CV.
Yeah,
should
like
you put a picture?
The culture of applying and making profile.
Exactly.
Portfolio, sorry.
In some places, you should definitely not put your picture on a CV. No, you don't do it. Other places you can, but you need to know where you're working with. And I think what I found was I was not able to find the resources in the beginning, and talking with other international architects was really important for me. So I could understand, okay, how was your experience? Some people, they have like connections before they come, and those connections that are already established in the Swedish market help them. And, the word to mouth happens. But when you don't have this connection, then it's really hard to find where to start or what to do and how to initiate the process of looking for a job. Yeah.
What are the other challenges?
To establish these connections as well.
Of course, yeah.
Because there were not many events happening when I came, except from this meetup focused on international architects, but there were not an opportunity for me to actually know more places. So an interesting fact, when I first came to Sweden the very first time as a visitor, I got in touch with a lot of offices, and this was summer 2017. And I got in touch with a lot of offices just to see, can I come and visit? I am an architect and I'm interested in moving to Sweden.
Okay.
So I'm testing the waters. And I got a lot of replies like, we close for 5 weeks during the summer or 4 weeks during the summer. And I was like, how come? Is that such a thing? Like, I never heard of it before. So just this simple thing is so different for me to understand, and how the impact it has on someone coming from a different country, like, so this is when I'm going to have my holiday. So I'm going to have to plan visiting my family overseas during this time of the year then, because it doesn't seem to be that flexible. You should be taking time off during the time. So, it was interesting back then because I started to understand the industry. I managed to visit an office and I managed to establish some connections in the beginning, but I was so naive. I had no idea what was ahead of me. And as soon as I became aware, I was like, I wouldn't dare get in touch with an office like that again and just like coming and saying hi, because I understood that it's maybe very unusual, I think.
Yeah. So like the challenges are first the language barrier, then where you find information, and also like the culture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Fatima, back to you. So you saw people with these challenges. What was like the next step that you did more concrete? What was the next step?
Yeah. So the very first step was to have a meetup and see who the expats are, and that was really just to get to know everyone and see what's happening, to hear their stories. And then we became a team of volunteers. And then just talking to that team of about 10, 11 people, trying to assess the situation a little bit more. because my problem was different from someone like Mayra, for example. I registered with various architecture pretty quickly because I had studied in the UK.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody else had to wait for 2 years to get their membership and get that stamp of approval, you see, that the quality is there. So just slowly we tried to understand the situation and ask the questions and try to within ourselves, and then having these online meetups, talk a little bit more and understand the situation a bit more. But as we went further during 2021, it was quite apparent that the problem isn't just being newly arrived. The problem isn't just looking for a job, because at some point we will find a job.
True.
It's not that harsh in a way, but the question is, what kind of job? Are you happy at that job? That would be the next question. Once you are in it, are you actually growing, or are you being cast aside? And then also trying to get the local architects to show more interest, because from our perspective, we realize that yes, we can do everything we can to put our CVs in a certain way, put our portfolios together, network and so on. But if the interest is not also there, then it's going to be hard no matter what we do.
Yeah.
So then it was quite apparent that we need to have this platform needs to be for everyone, and it needs to act. We kept saying it's a bridge between the local and the newly arrived or the internationals, but it's a two-sided bridge. So as much as we're interested, we hope that the locals are also interested in bringing this internationality and diversity. And also it was quite apparent that there is a difference between having a diverse company and having an international company. They can be the same, but sometimes they're different. So you can be international, but you could still be
and not diverse.
So that was also one of the findings, that okay, there's actually two different things that they are related. So all of that kind of throughout the meetings, and just listening, talking to people, observing the situation. And we are new as well, so we don't want to go out there and say, oh, we figured it all out, but we don't want to make that judgment so quickly. So that was quite interesting. And we started to put a little bit more, like, define our agenda, who should be the target group and why, and where should we take it, and who is an international architect. You could be Swedish and consider yourself an international architect. Then you want to connect with people like us, because you want to keep the doors open for yourself. Maybe you want to move elsewhere. Maybe you want to go to Brazil. Who do you ask? Mayra. So those things, we thought, okay, this could be quite a good place for everyone. And we're hoping to take those challenges and those questions forward and make a difference, and not just be a little community of newly arrived who are in their bubble, and then they find a job and then it's all forgotten.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
And Mayra, like Fatima mentioned people, and you had many meetings. So you're still doing volunteering? Like, how is the structure of the team?
Yeah, we are all volunteers. Spread through Sweden, based in Gothenburg, Malmo, and Stockholm currently. Some of us we've never met physically before. We have online meetings, and we keep in touch through groups. It's like we have like an organization, let's say spreadsheets and schedules and Google Drive content. But we are all volunteers, and quite a lot of us have full-time jobs. So this is something we do on the side. Some of us are looking for jobs, and then more time available, let's say. But that changes a lot as well. Like some people start to get involved with learning a language or get a new job, and some of them stick with us. Some of them just have to focus on something else, and that's perfectly fine. So we are volunteers.
But is it a network, association? What is it like? If we talk more about the formal,
I think we call ourselves an organization, right?
No, wait. Now we need to be clear.
No.
We need to be clear, because you studied this 2 years of law or something.
Yeah,
so now we need to.
I would call it, perhaps I would call it a social platform at the moment.
No, but tell me, like, is it an official registered organization or not?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so it's a kind of a digitally existing.
Yeah. We are going towards that.
Yeah.
But for now, we're a social online platform.
A social platform, exactly. And we haven't we haven't gone up yet to become an organization, but that's our ultimate goal. So we can actually apply for funds and do things with like some funding and be able to overcome this boundary of just being volunteers. But we are currently just a social platform.
Yeah. And like, because now many groups in different cities. So how do you talk with each other? Who is like the leader? There should be some kind of a structure to have this running.
We've structured ourselves into different teams. So we have the social media team, we have the graphics team, we have the events, and we have Google Drive or Information Center, and then we have the management team. And now we are also adding new teams like surveys and legal and so on. So that's how, and people are in different teams under those groups working together, volunteers, and each group has its own leader. And then there is two of us who are doing the overall coordination. I don't want to call it management because it's quite boring, but overall coordination between all these teams. And we are the way we do it, because we're all working. We have WhatsApp and we have Slack. I mean, this is all the detail, but it's constantly going. We never sleep because our time schedules are different. Sometimes I'm doing work by IS at 10 p.m. Sometimes Mayra is there at, 6 a.m. So we just have to push it forward. So we have a weekly plan, and whoever has time at a certain hour just jumps in, and we divide the tasks so we know what we're doing weekly. And then we just take it from there. Basically, we're trying to work like a firm, but in a digital format and not being there together all the time. So it's really being flexible.
Why do you do that?
Good question.
I think we want to make...
now you have a job. I guess both of you have a job.
Yes.
So just say thank you and give it to the next. Why do you do that?
That's the thing. We needed to get to a stage where this could be passed to the next group, and that we needed a structure, because otherwise it would fade away, just like all the other initiatives that started to happen before. Facebook groups that no one knows who's the admin is, and you can't activate it again, or content that no one has access to and cannot continue to put information there and update information. So we wanted to organize a structure and a set of goals that could help whoever comes and joins next, and like gives it the freedom to continue despite our presence and our contribution. And that's hard to achieve as well.
I understand, but like, why do you put so much hours on this?
Because we're passionate about it. Because it's a subject that's quite close to all of us, and no matter if you have a job or not, the dialogues will be ongoing. So you are always part of that dialogue, because you're always that international or foreign architect or whatever you want to name it. So we know this problem it's not a problem, but this topic will not go away. So we are excited about it. We want to push it forward. We want to make it something more permanent, as Mayra said. We want to make it this organism that it can keep going, and we can leave it or come back, or be part of the dialogue. But we also, I think, I want to speak for all of us, we also like to make a change. I think personality-wise, we're all ambitious. We like to make a difference, and we've experienced something that we think we can make a difference here, and why not contribute? It's I think we're all quite excited about that. We're actually doing something that will affect more than just us, many people, not just a few of us. And then if it can last, and if it will last, then even better. Then we can always come back and keep those dialogues going. And the industry changes as well. Yeah. This year we have one issue, next year might be another. So it will never get boring, if you want to say in that sense. So you could call it that we're passionate about this topic, this agenda, because we have experienced it ourselves firsthand, and we feel that we have a lot to say, and we can make a positive difference in this industry.
Yeah. What do you think?
And adding to that, I think we are going to always be international in a way, no matter how much we learn about the language, no matter how much we learn about the culture and the working culture. It's impossible for us to just leave behind what we've learned prior to coming to Sweden, and this should be rather embraced. And I think putting together the social platform and engaging in it is for me a way to feel like I'm doing something to embrace my internationality and bringing it closer to my colleagues so they can understand who I am, where I come from, how the ways I think and the way I work comes from as well. So this passion is also a motivation for me to keep going, because it can be quite challenging to feel like an outsider all the time. And the only way for the future people coming and for myself in the future to feel less of an outsider is to try to bring my colleagues closer to my word a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's my motivation.
Very interesting. Tell me about how many people are there in the different communities, or what do you call it? Social clubs? What do you call it? Groups. Sorry.
Groups.
Yeah, groups. How many people are there, and like how do they join? Is it free?
Well, there's about 12 of us, I think now. 12 of us. We often post on our platforms that we're looking for volunteers.
12 the team.
Yes, at the
Okay,
moment.
okay.
So there's 12 of us in the team, and then we're subdivided. We do overlapping work as well. But we often post on social media that we're looking for volunteers, and we always get a lot of responses. So it hasn't been difficult finding people. And it's free to join. We're all open to everyone from all backgrounds. The more diverse, the better, because we learn more. And people are also free to leave anytime, because, as Mayra mentioned, it's life happens and you have to prioritize things, and it's not easy to give your time to something like this. But we keep it open so people can come in and go, and it's free. And we like having more people involved as well.
We need more people.
We need
Yeah.
more people.
But it's also free, like, for people to join the group as like
Yes.
not a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
We have now social media profiles or channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Those three share the same kind of content, and one can decide to just follow all of them and kind of absorb the information. That's part of the network we want to grow.
Because I was following the recently. I see there is a graphic profile or layout. Seems like things are getting super serious now and super professional, because before it was not like this. And now I see what happened. Did they got money now, or?
No, we had a sort of a lessons learned during summer, basically July, August, just going through everything and just saying, okay, we need to pause, we need to restructure. And now we've learned a few things. Let's see how we can properly structure it. Until now, it was a little bit more experimental, trying to observe the market. So then we structured, and then we said, okay, now we need to have a proper identity, graphic identity, but not just graphics, but the content as well. Because now we know who's our target group, or now we know who we want to target. Then we have to follow that kind of pattern, and then the look and feel and all of that followed as well.
So who's your target group now?
We're targeting the newly arrived, the international architects or foreign architects who have been working here or are working here. We're targeting Swedish architects who consider themselves international, but if they've studied abroad and they still want to be connected. And the local architects who are here, working here, have lived here or studied here, and are quite embedded with the industry here. So those are the main target groups that we hope to engage with in different ways, through different platforms like the events or the information center or the attending things like this podcast. So to target different, address different groups and see how we can connect with them and how we can get them to engage with us and learn from there as well.
Yeah. It's very interesting, like how you got the structure and you're just only doing it voluntarily based. Yeah. So Mayra, tell me, like, what kind of content or what do you provide as a International Architects Sweden? I'm always trying not to say IAS. I hope.
It is correct.
Okay, finally. So tell me, what do you do?
As Fatima mentioned, we have the target groups,
Yeah.
and we try to tame the content we share now on a weekly basis in a way that is interesting for at least 3 of these groups. So we are currently, or we last week launched the IIS Information Center, which is a platform holding a lot of information that we gathered through these last 2 years, combining building permits, looking for jobs, references of all kinds, and we divided them in different folders. So we put together a website, a very simple one, and we launched it so people can have access to it. The idea was to provide the resources that we always lacked in one place. So there, if you recently arrived, you can come and look for the name of the main companies, or where to find the companies, or how to look for work, and organizations in Sweden that help you to find job as well. And then if you're already employed but you are lacking information about building permits, for example, you want to understand more how to understand the law in Sweden, we have put together a list of books and links and places that you can find this information. So we are trying to share this with a social media strategy somehow, focused on trying to combine these 3-4 target groups we said. So we have content for newly arrived, trying to understand the terminology of the positions.
Yeah.
So that means these in English, so you can understand better. Okay, so I can apply for this position because I have this level of experience. We are also celebrating us, so we often post the profiles of those who are interested.
Yeah, I see. It's I really like it when you post about people.
Yeah. In the beginning, before we restructured, we were posting the profiles and their portfolio. We are going to go back to do it, but now following our graphics structure. So this is something very important as well, because as someone wanting to put yourself out there, it's not that easy to find a place where you can actually
say hello. I'm here.
Yeah. So it's an idea to celebrate all of us here. And we want to host more events, and those events will be part of our network content or our social media content as well. But we also share the events that are happening or are going to happen in the country in the coming weeks, in the coming months, in the coming year. So this is a way as well to communicate everything that is happening in the industry to everyone.
Exactly. What kind of events do you organize?
Up till now, it's been mostly networking and expat events, talking about different issues. What are your experiences? Sharing experiences together. But we then, towards the end of, I want to say end, but last year, kind of towards summer, we changed the topic a little bit. We realized, okay, it's not just about where do you go find a job, or how do you update your CV. It's also about what is an architect in this country in comparison to your country. So we then started to find those topics that became more interesting, again, relevant to our target groups. For example, one of the events we did was about comparing the practice of architecture in Sweden and elsewhere. And we had 500 people interested to attend, and it was in June.
This is crazy.
June, summertime, nobody cares about being online and networking and so on. 500 people interested, and we had quite a few who turned up. I think there were about 100 who actually did join. And we had architects from everywhere. We had people connecting from Denmark to Greece, to people being in Sweden, Swedish architects who had studied elsewhere and moved back and needed to know what's the difference. And then we started to ask questions. Is the title of architect protected in your country? What is the ratio of male to female? Is it well paid? And all those little things that we all know about, but we can just casually talk about as friends. And then we kind of realized, okay, this is good. This is now engaging, because we are now all interested in this, and it's actually, we're learning from each other, and that's what we want to do. So we're hoping that we had taken a little break from events to focus on the restructuring.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that this year we will then go to those topics that we found really interesting and engaging. For example, the role of the architect in this country, the way they do the fee proposal in comparison to other places, and how does that reflect on the architecture, and subsequently how does that reflect on who you employ and why? Why do they have to be diverse? Why do you want the company to represent different nationalities or different cultures or different backgrounds? So those things we want to explore and get people to come and debate and talk and just exchange that knowledge. And we're hoping to focus on that towards the end of this year, hopefully. But as Mayra said, because we're volunteers and we're doing this in our spare time, we have to also be realistic what we can achieve.
Of course.
Because between 10, 11 of us, I don't know how many hours a week we're putting in.
I can imagine, like, so many hours. What is the next step of this? Now you're established a structure, you have a plan and so on. What is the next?
I think we are now in a place where we can think of formalizing our social platform as perhaps an organization. So we are looking into that and understanding what the possibilities are. Coming here today was definitely part of our next step. We wanted to be ready to share our existence with the rest of Sweden. So thanks for
my pleasure.
The time. And our idea is that we can grow in a way that we are bringing more people interested to be part of our world, and also connecting with others that we can actually can be enablers for us to continue and spreading the word, because things can go in a very organic way that we can't predict. Maybe in 2 years from now, we are going to be something that we can't even imagine we can be in the future. But we want to grow. We want to spread the word. We want to go outside of just Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Malmö, for example. It would be perfect to have other volunteers or participants live in the north of Sweden or in the inner states. And so we can understand what's happening there too. And we can only do that if we become big enough and we have the power and hands and resources to do so.
Yeah. I was thinking about one thing here. How is the atmosphere? Is there a lot of negative energy because many people looking for a job, many people like mad because of the system here? Share with us what the feelings, the atmosphere. How is it?
I think we get contacted by a lot of job seekers wanting a simple answer. How do I get a job? And there is no simple answer. It's a work.
Yeah. You'd be like, go to the information center.
Yeah. That's basically what we say.
That's what we hope to do.
And I guess I'm assuming that a lot of people, they get a little bit frustrated with the answer, because I don't know, whenever we get contacted, sometimes it feels like they believe that we are here to help people find a job.
To give a job.
Yeah. And that's not really the truth. So it's very important for us to also change this image. We got there somehow. We didn't want to get there, but there is this image and this stigma. But I think looking for a job is a place that is hard in life for everyone. Being young or older or late in your career, it's not a very comfortable place to be. So of course, I assume that whoever is in this position is probably feeling a bit negative about everything.
Yeah.
And I guess these last 2 years were proven to be even harder because of the pandemic, making everything a bit less accessible. But in general, I think we get a lot of positive feedback. We hear as well, like when we share a few times the words of like what the positions mean, we got a lot of positive feedback. Oh, thanks, that helped me a lot, like clarified what the position I was applying for meant, and so on and so forth. So that also is very positive. I think that's what we are aiming for as well.
And how is it within the social platform? Like when you do the meetups and so on, what kind of energy?
Curiosity, I would say, mostly. I wouldn't say negative. Generally, people are there to know more and connect, because one thing many people learn when they come here is that networking is quite important. You know,
It's like I think network is the key. Like is everything.
in this, especially here. So they are quite interested in networking, to know people who know someone else who can help them get a job. And then, of course, there are the basic questions: where do I get a job? Swedish CVs and so on. And those are the kind of more curious, want to know more how to connect and so on. We put together a folder of our information center called Networking, and we launched it last March. And that's been the most in demand folder for obvious reasons.
Like what is there? Like how do you network?
Basically, our folders work in a way, our information center works in a way that we are not writing the information ourselves. We're linking them or connecting them, pointing them to other platforms. Like, for example, we say, are you interested in Swedish architecture?
Here.
Go to Urbanistica, listen to Urbanistica podcast. So we list those things.
Because
websites
before you continue, sorry for interrupting. I was thinking like, now you put information in from your perspective, and this might be limited, with all respect to you.
No, we are not writing the information. We're only pointing them where to find the information you're looking for. If you're looking for planning permission, or if you're looking for about building regulations, there is, for example, Boverkets website, and these are the English pages. And so that's what we do. We really just give a little explanation and let them decide. And if that information is updated, then we don't have to worry about that. So with the networking, we listed all the places you could go to network, including, IIS itself.
Yeah.
And letting them know. And that was in demand.
That's so nice.
more than the language and jargon folder, more than everything else, more than newly arrived. Another interesting thing was that because our title is International Architects Sweden, we get a lot of people from outside of Sweden who want to move here contacting us. Because when they search online, Sveriges Architecter,
you appear first.
Yeah, it's not an English title, so they think we are the main body.
Swedish.
Yeah, and then we have to tell them, oh, actually, you need to go to Sveriges Architecter, or now go to our information center. So, so I didn't find necessarily a negative vibe. More about, I want to really integrate. Please help.
Yeah.
And often everybody's so enthusiastic as well, which is amazing. Just really want to connect and know you and be part of this.
Yeah. Did you try to make a deal with Sveriges Architecter? Because now you have a system, you have a team. Did you tell them, okay, can we join and be such like a sub team in your organization because there is this demand and so on?
We haven't yet. The motion I put forward in 2020 was suggesting that something like this becomes part of their services, but no, we have not approached them.
I mean, why? I mean, Sveriges Architecter already a big organization, and why you not join Power instead of creating something new? And the end, I mean, you're one.
It is a good question. It's something that we are exploring again as part of this year's agenda.
Yeah.
Where we can take it and how useful this is to everyone, and then see if Sveriges Architecter or any other organization is interesting.
Because I'm thinking like this: if you want to link people to the market, you should first be linked somehow. Like, so how is your relationship with the existing infrastructure here in Sweden? Like with different associations, studios, organizations. Do you have a close touch with them?
Yes and no. We have the close contact with the places we are occupying, we are employed at, I guess.
Yeah.
But not much more outside of it. And we want to. And I think we got now to a place, our structure, our goals, it's clear enough for us that we can reach out to more people. The same with Sveriges Architecter. I think we've always wanted to approach them, but we first needed to do our
you need to have like a fixed structure before you go. And
we had to also test ourselves as well that this is going to go forward. So it was too soon to try and bring others in when we were trying to figure out what we need to do, or what we think we need to do. I mean, right now we're quite excited about running surveys, getting companies involved to tell us more about their system, or how they work in terms of diversity, internationality, and all of that. And we are interested in doing more events that are also interesting for others.
Yeah.
And then once that's in a good place, then we can say, great, now
we can do.
Now we can actually formalize.
Because what I see, like you have a kind of pool of talents, and it's very good for companies to be in touch with you to get these kind of talents.
Yes, we hope so. We hope that we have companies following us on our social media platforms, architectural companies in Sweden. So they are following our but not necessarily being active.
Yeah, because like
projects.
Also like following this, maybe the social media manager is not like the one who is responsible for the recruiting the people.
But we do have positive experiences that some of our volunteers mentioned the engagement and the involvement with IAS, and that was a positive outcome on their hiring process.
Nice.
So I guess this is the start of something.
Yeah.
We are in the start of something, and we can just go forward and continue to try to engage to these other organizations, offices, studios, and it's very interesting.
Yeah. Do you see recently that there are Swedish architects coming, or no, they are like not really engaged?
It's been more than last year, I would say. It's been more than last year, but not to the extent we wanted to. So we are trying to make that a little bit more. As I said, the more the Swedish architects interested, the better, because the dialogues then can actually happen.
And they are the key.
And they're the key to unlocking this door.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're hoping to engage more with the companies and the local architects.
So what is on the agenda? What is going to happen now, before the summer, after the summer? What do you have, like some highlights?
We have some highlights. We keep revising them.
Yeah, like first Urbanistica podcast.
Yeah, so we have a few goals to hit. One is the launch of the website. I think that's the big one.
When is it?
We have a date. Well, we have a time, but I don't want to announce it yet. This year.
Oh, really? Thank you so much.
Year, that's all I can give you. And we are looking at some larger events, such as H22, Helsingborg 22. We're hoping to be present there as well. And we are talking to some other international architects here who we hope to engage with in terms of events and debates, and to have guest speakers. Like, for example, last year we had someone from Sveriges Architecture who was a guest at our event, and that was quite well received. So we have these things, but generally it's the surveys. We want to be able to launch some surveys amongst different target groups, and the website, because we think that is a good place for everyone to start, and some key events. We'll see.
Yeah, cool. And how about the team? How many people you want in, and so on?
I think we would like to start being attractive to the Swedish locals. Having them as volunteers would definitely help a lot. We at the moment only have international volunteers, and I don't think we have a number that we can say we want to have these many volunteers in our group, but we want to have the quality of the volunteers as well, because it's very important that our volunteers not only do everything, but also have the initiative and, have the openness to try their own ideas. So I guess we need more volunteers for sure at the moment, because we are starting to lack hands to do everything. As we grow, the demands grow as well. Let's say now I think we need at least one more for each of our groups, so 5 more volunteers. But through the year, maybe we need double of it, or like we need to make ourselves double as well. So we have to see how much we can achieve.
No, it's really interesting what you did and what you're doing now and will do. And I will be more than happy to follow the journey. And after publishing the website, maybe we can record another one and see like the effect and so on. So I will be happy to follow your story one more time again.
That'd be fantastic. We would love to be here.
Yeah. So is this only happening here in Sweden? Like the barrier with the language, the culture, that people are a bit closed, the studios are closed to hire like people which study in another country, another discipline, and so on? Or no? What do you think? You have been in many countries.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's a discussion that happens in every single country I've stepped on. Each of them have their own challenges. I'd say it's like, as we mentioned before, some countries do require an assessment or a certification in order to actually act as an architect. So this is a challenge. In some countries, it can take you like 3-4 years to get these certifications.
Yeah.
You have to undergo a number of exams, and these alone is a challenge. The language, or even like the passport, salaries, underpayment is often a discussion. We follow some other references on social media, some groups that are active, like in Switzerland, in the US, with the same agenda. Being a foreigner, any country you go, it's often challenging. But as I said, the challenges can differ. The nature of the challenges can differ. Some countries are more open to more cultures. I guess like Fatima can say more about it, but I have the idea that the architecture industry in the UK is super diverse. But then there are other challenges that come with that as well, or not that come with that, but they are presented to those trying to go into this market. So it's not restricted to Sweden.
Because this is what I want to say. Now on the podcast, we have listeners from 125 countries. And maybe now they got image that it's like, don't think about coming to Sweden because you will face these problems, you know? So this is what I want to know from you. Like, is it only in Sweden, or it's a common thing, or what do you think, Fatima?
Well, for me, I lived in London for a long time, and that sort of spoils you for many reasons. One is that it's made of, London is diverse. It can't get more diverse than that. And the culture, the architectural practices, the majority, the culture is quite competitive, which is different from here. Here we have the culture of Jantelagen, which is sort of almost you're a bit aware of when you're too competitive. You know? So there it's more about, if you're from somewhere else, the culture is very curious, so they're interested, but also because they're interested to work internationally, then they are interested in you. If they're getting projects in Dubai, which they do go for, then they will look for people who can speak Arabic.
Yeah.
So that really changes everything. And some companies deliberately hire internationals from East Asia and so on. So then when the opportunity comes, they can immediately say, we have a team of Asian architects, for example. So it's a lot more different. But over there we have other issues like the sexism. And, but in general, I think it's also, it's not as diverse as it should be in the UK. And now there's this new movement of trying to make companies more diverse, or asking the questions, and not just diversity, as you know, it doesn't just mean about being from a different race. It's about many aspects of life that it includes. So my experience here has been quite an extreme in comparison to where I come from. So it's unfair to compare, I think, Sweden and UK, specifically London. But I think it's a global problem.
No, it's interesting to hear this reflection. And I hope we will have more time in the coming episode to talk more like deeply. Now we talked about the social platform and so on. So next one, we talk more about like these kind of aspects. And now we are in the last section of this episode. Time flies. So this section is going to be more about you and your relationship to architecture and so on. So we start with you, Mayra. What should architects stop doing? Please be kind to your colleagues.
I think, it's a hard question. Put me on the spot here. But I think not only architects, but urban planners, landscape architects, and everyone involved in the industry, and should maybe start to think more about the experiences the places can offer rather than the target groups we are trying to go for. Because I feel that sometimes when I'm designing something and I'm thinking on the group that is going to be used, this is limited. It's a limited understanding of the space, because I can only imagine as much as I saw before, or as much as I experienced myself. And my understanding of the possibilities of a space is way more limited and perhaps biased compared to other possibilities. So I'm trying to think more of like an experience rather than a target group when I do my work. And I see that as being a good lead, because places change, cultures change, and it's important that with changes we can accommodate all the diversity coming to cities especially. So it's important that an older person, a younger person, different genders, different ethnicities feel welcome in the places we are designing, especially talking about the outdoor spaces, the public spaces. And I think that's only possible to achieve if we start to think about the experiences rather than the target groups.
More like the experience is the aim. How about you, Fatima? What should architects stop doing?
So, I mean, it's quite similar to what Mayra is saying. It's I feel we should stop designing buildings in isolation with their context and relationship to the city and also and its users. And the big part of that is also think about the future. Think about what's going to happen in 10 years, 15 years. I feel right now many of the buildings we're designing are not open enough, and we are changing as a culture that we want to be more open, and we want to have the architecture is changing, that we want to have these public spaces. So I feel we should stop designing. It's really hard. You're asking me to tell architects what not to do, and stop designing in buildings in isolation and think about the bigger picture, the broader picture, and the future, the past, and so on. And also think about legacy. I think that's quite important for me as well.
Yeah. And what should architects do more or start doing?
Connect with their audience, I guess.
Like the users?
The users. Again, goes back to think about the future and your relationship to the context, and connect with people, connect with cultures, and be part of it, and have good dialogues, really, rather than before putting the pen on paper. Try to understand why you're doing this, as from personal perspective, from professional point of view, and from your client's point of view, because at the end of the day, it's the client who needs to be convinced. And who is the client?
Exactly.
Are you actually reading the client well? Are you connecting with them? Are you just thinking about what you think it should be is best for the job?
How about you?
Not that different.
What should architects do more?
I think we should be occupying all the platforms we can in terms of practicing our speech and our dialogue, as Fatima mentioned. Make the close proximity to the users, because I think we have a key role in enabling social interactions in cities. So the only way for us to provide quality and good experiences is that we understand and we can communicate verbally with our users, because I think we often get like stuck in the bubble of we are very good in communicating our ideas to other professionals of our field, but if someone without the background we have comes and listens to what we are saying, it's often like, this is not tangible, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I think we often make the same mistake when we are designing, so it's important that we go forward the conversation and communication with our user, come closer to them and make this connection closer.
And if you are allowed to create one rule or add one thing to our cities, all our cities, from urban planning and architecture perspective, what will you add?
I would hard I would make cars take them out of cities. I think they limit what we can do in the sense of city perspective and city planning. So making the no car cities like my ultimate goal.
Like car-free cities.
Car-free cities,
Mm.
car-free societies, if I could, but that
What?
car-free societies,
Aha.
if I could, but that maybe is too utopic. But the car-free cities,
Yeah.
I think it's
Mm.
my goal.
And you, Fatima.
It's exactly the same.
Also, you will help her
Yeah,
to do that.
I will help her to do that. No, it's been a dilemma of mine
Mm.
because as architects we spend so much time trying to design for cars,
Mm.
and you sit there and think, well, what if there were no cars? What if it was never invented?
Yeah,
And what
exactly.
would the cities look like? Would we have suburbans? Would we have this culture of dad is working in the city, commuting 3 hours by car, and therefore the family life sacrifices itself for that matter because of the situation. That would have changed the culture. I think that would have changed, as Mayra saying, the societies.
True.
We're not just talking about physical spaces. We're talking about relationships. So it's a huge challenge, I think, now for us architects, that when we often if I'm asked to put a parking block on the site, I'm thinking, what about in 50 years when there are no cars, or hopefully no cars? What is happening to this building? Can we convert it to something else? Can it become residential? Can it, just thinking about that future, I think as a designer is a good start, just to be able to imagine that this may not always be the case.
Yeah.
Let's try and imagine it will not be the case. Then perhaps we will design better cities.
So now we have the last two questions, and the first one is about you giving us 3 takeaway messages to the listeners, to me. So what are your 3 takeaway messages?
We've actually talked about this together because it's been in context of internationality and diversity, and for me one of the messages would be cities are made of different people and cultures, and so the architecture needs to represent that, which means the architects who are designing them need to represent that, which means the companies should think about those people being present in their work. And
I think
pass on to me.
International talents have as much to offer as local talent, even though it may not seem that way at first glance, but it is worth it. And we are present here to guarantee it. We are as motivated, as capable as a local talent would be. But we probably come across in a different way, or we use different languages. But this is good. This is positive. And the other thing is that the diversification does consume energy. It is time consuming. It's energy consuming. But it is as rewarding. It's really fun to connect with people that are different, think different. It's positive. It's something that it's upbringing as well. It lifts the spirit.
Exactly. You have more? No more. And the last question is going to be asked by you. So each one of you, please ask the listeners a question.
I can start?
Yeah.
I think my question is like the question of one of our events: how international would you like to be? I think my answer is that Sweden has a great advantage based on the language skills that the majority of the population has, and therefore this is like the lead to take care and to care for their internationals coming and arriving. I think this gives a big advantage in the integration process, and sometimes I look around and I don't understand why this is not being better used in the culture. So it's a matter of just understanding how much you want to do and how much companies want to integrate.
Yeah.
Because the basic resource, which is the universal language to communicate, is already there. It's already part of the structure and the culture.
Yeah. What is your question?
I mean, it would be similar. It would be the main key question would be how far you want to go. How adventurous are you when it comes to architecture? And then on top of that, therefore, who do you want to connect with? If you are interested in that kind of exploration, who would you go to and why? And would that mean that in that picture there is a level of nationality involved? That would be my question. Who would you go to?
Interesting. Good questions. I just want to say thank you so much for coming, for giving your time to record this episode, and hopefully talk to you again and we keep the conversation going on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us here today.
Thank you as well. And we're really happy to be here again. Thank you.